Hey, this is Daniel from GrowingMusicStudio.com, and I'm here with Greg from GroupLessons.com. And today we're going deeper into how technology can improve your studio's educational results and business performance. So this video is going to be highly relevant to you if you have an interest in group lessons teaching, specifically piano group lessons teaching, and if you have an interest in tools that make the running of your studio more profitable. Now, Greg has a lot to say about this. He's currently running a piano school in Northern Virginia that sees about 300 kids per week with just 2 teachers. And we recently did a podcast episode about this. I'll probably link to it down here below if you didn't catch that. It was our most downloaded podcast of Season 1. And he kind of gives the overview here. But in this series of videos that I'm doing just with Greg, we're going into specific topics that are of interest to music studio owners, and especially studio owners that are in the mid-size school range, anywhere from 150 to, let's say, 400 students. Now, last week, in our last chat that Greg and I had, we talked about how Greg is using technology to help students succeed at home, using technology to increase and measure student practice times. In fact, we even jumped in and looked at some graphs, looked at a very specific student and how that student was practicing, and how a teacher could monitor that student and know how to help that student better when they were coming back for their lesson. But Greg, you know, we only scratched the surface of that topic. So today, I'd like to go a level deeper and look at the technological side of things and ask maybe a tough question here to start out with. And I know we've got a lot of topics to cover today, but let me just start with a little bit of a tough question. I wonder what your opinion is on this. Is it a waste of time to use tech tools in teaching? Is it somehow detracting from student results? Is it an extra that we really don't need? As teachers, do we need all of these tech tools that are available to us in this day and age? And I'm just going to kind of leave it right there and turn it over to you. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on this as we get going and explore this.
Okay. Do we need it? Clearly, no. We do not need tech tools. Is it a waste of time? Probably not. No. There are certainly ways to use tech tools to leverage better success for you as a teacher, your students, and your studio. The podcast that you referenced, we ended that podcast just talking about tools. You know, how important are tools? And I think tools are as valuable as the human being holding the tools. So if a teacher really connects to some sort of online teaching tool and sees the path forward to use it in their studio and starts to use it, like any tool, it takes practice. You know, you start practicing with this tool, you get better at it, you start seeing better results, then yes, it's useful. But of course, it would be silly to say that any teacher needs the tools, because we've been teaching piano for hundreds of years without technology tools. I would say that in our day and age that we live in the age of information, it would behoove a teacher to at least open their mind to the possibilities, because there's more possibilities out there than ever before.
Cool. Now this gets into the next question I want to ask you, and that is how you came to start using technology in your studio. Because you graduated a couple years before me, you went into teaching, we both got into group lessons pretty early before it became a topic of major interest for schools in our industry. Or at least exploded in the way that it has in the last 5 years. Right. What was your journey into tech? Why did you do it? And of course, we're obviously leading to a point with all this, but I think the background is important as we start to develop that topic.
Right. Okay. Well, then it's story time. Is that all right? Can we?
Yeah, that's great.
Can we have some stories? All right. So in 2008, I was at a piano retail store in my area, and there was a lady there demonstrating Roland HPI digital pianos, and she was showing pushing every button on the thing and said, here's the sounds and here's the recording capabilities. And she said one thing, you know, this piano can actually give you a grade on your performance. And there were some songs that were programmed into the Roland piano, and she played along, and it was like, you got 94%, and there's like this applause, yay. And she mentioned off the cuff, you can even record your own songs on a flash drive and stick it into the piano, and the piano will record. It will grade any song you come up with. And I was on my personal journey of trying to go from private lessons to group lessons, and I was having a really hard time figuring out how to handle all of the assessment. Okay, all of the students that come with the songs they either practiced or haven't practiced, and right notes, wrong notes, you're ready for a new song, here's how your new song sounds, and I was just like, how am I going to fit in all of that into an hour? I couldn't get around like the time management problems, and I was really just looking for a solution, and I saw it in this piano. And I went to this lady, and I asked her, how do you compose your own songs? And she said to me, she's like, well, I know it's possible, but I don't really know how. And so then I called the people at the piano retailer and the people that are selling the Roland pianos, the sales reps. I was like, how does this work? And they didn't know.
Wow.
I called Roland. I got in touch with people at Roland. Almost like they knew it could be done, but almost no one knew how. And this was like when I really understood that I was about to be an innovator, because I couldn't Google the thing that I wanted to do, because I was going to be one of the first in the world to do it. And so I was going to be the answer to it. And so I was like, there it is, my path forward. I can use Roland pianos, and it will gamify for students, and it will help me with my time management. So I saw my path forward. There was one problem with Roland pianos. They were expensive, Daniel. They were $4,000 a piece. Okay? And I wanted 12. And that was going to be $50,000 before I had even opened my business. I didn't have $50,000 laying around. I was going to have to put that on a credit card, max out credit card, and be in bad consumer debt. So I was talking to the sales reps they were very helpful with the sale, but not very helpful with the technology. I was talking with them, and I said, before I buy these pianos, I really want to look into software, because I knew that software would be a much cheaper, like if I could plug a tablet into a more basic keyboard. So I looked high and low. I really wanted to find in 2010 a software that would do what I needed it to do. And I found a little company in Halifax, Nova Scotia that was close. I found another company called Piano Wizard. I don't know where they were out of, but they both had huge programming problems. It wouldn't grade fairly. And children need a fair grade, okay? That's not fair are fight words for kids, right? That's not fair, right? So I needed, and I kind of had conversations with the owners of these small software companies. Are you going to fix these problems? And they're just like, maybe.
Man.
And so, and I wonder, paying software developers is expensive. So maybe these companies were out of money. I mean, I can only surmise why they would release something that didn't quite work. So I went with the Rolands. I bit the bullet and spent $48,000, and I stuck with hardware for 4 years. And for 4 years, my piano sat on the floor. Hardware does not get updates. It just becomes farther and farther removed from the latest tech. So 2014, I bumped into a growing software company that did everything that the Roland pianos did, and so I called them and worked out a deal. It was Aaron Garner. He is the CEO of Piano Marvel, and the two of us hit it off. I explained to him what I was doing in my studio, and he loved what I was doing, and so we actually worked together for almost 5 years. And when I mean work together, his developers uploaded the songs that I had written for my method book series at the time. It was a beta version of my books. We have since rewritten our books, and so they're like older songs. But he uploaded some of the songs that I had at the time, and then I was just a subscriber. I paid user fees, and we were on a handshake agreement that we were going to work together for a while, and we ended up working together for almost 5 years. Piano Marvel was the closest thing to a perfect fit that I had found. It still was not quite a perfect fit. There were still some things that I wanted a software, if I had total creative control over, I wanted the software to do that. They were maybe one ring outside of the bullseye. So we had a conversation, and in full disclosure, I said, I'm starting to see the end of the road. And so, we, after 5 years in complete transparency, we parted ways. I think that if I was not the author of the method book series, it wouldn't bother me at all. But I guess the innovator in me, I think so. Reason number two, with reason number one, probably more two than one, was the reason why we ended up parting ways, and I ended up working with my developer to come up with something completely original.
And I think that gets into what your vision has been, and I think that's kind of where we're really getting to with this particular interview, and getting into the tech side of things, because with total creative control, you were able to marry the software and the technology with the method in a way that has not been done with any other method in the world, from what I understand. And I'd love for you to talk about that.
Right. Okay, so we are opening the door for any teacher who's interested to take the same journey with their studio that I took with mine. I started teaching back in, let me say 2004, not 14. Right. 2004, I was at about 30 students teaching one-on-one lessons, driving door to door. Today I work with about 300 students. I have less hours a day in appointments with students now than I did then. And so we are not, the Piano Express right now, grouplessons.com, it is not a software company. We are a studio transformation company that happens to have a software as a component. Okay, we are teacher training, we are a method book series, and the software supports the method book, all for the purpose of teaching group lessons successfully, getting group lessons right.
How do you do that? How are you getting group lessons right? I know that's a very broad question, but I'm giving you a very broad canvas on which to paint, Greg.
Sure. Well, I think that there's the how we use technology to do the things that teachers wouldn't be able to do in a group lesson, but we still leave the job that teachers should be doing and need to be doing up to the teachers. So handling assessment, taking a group of students and gauging who's practiced, who's ready to move on to new songs, or who's practiced correctly, who's ready to move on to new songs, who needs more reinforcement or review on current concepts. And so being able to do all of that simultaneously. A human being can't do that, but a human being with a machine for that purpose can. And so with better time management, you can get through assessment sooner, and it leaves you more time to teach. So the teacher that wants to teach group lessons but doesn't want to feel like all of their time has been drained and out of, I had to go over here and listen to this song, and now I had to go over here. I had to handle this need. I had to go here and assign new songs, and now the hour's over and I didn't really get a chance to teach. That's the solution that we're trying to solve, and opening up the clock for teachers to have more time to be teachers in group lessons.
I wouldn't consider myself to be a Luddite, i.e., if that term is unfamiliar. A Luddite, it's basically someone who eschews new technology. It's a term from the 1800s.
Okay. I love vocabulary, so that's good. Luddite. Okay.
Yeah. So, however, when I was still teaching and still doing group lessons, in similar to a way that you were describing there of having to run around from student to student, it did take me a few years to really get good at balancing the students.
Yes.
Now, despite the fact that over the last 10 years we've seen an explosion in creativity, an explosion in softwares and tools and those sorts of things that are available to teachers, what I found as I got further into this kind of new age that we're in, maybe let's say starting in 2010 when the major app stores really came online and where the tools of publishing became democratized, where everyone could start a blog and that sort of thing. You know, one of the earliest blogs that was out there was Joy Moran's Color My Piano blog, and Tim Topham wasn't far behind. And now there's just, again, so many people out there offering all these tools and sorts of things. But despite all of that, I found that the farther I got into my teaching, the less that I used, to the point where the technological use of my studio in the last 5 years I was teaching was really, I used a note flashcard game, and that was it.
Yeah.
Now, there were studio management tools that I used, but in terms of the teaching itself, I use less and less. And this isn't over against what you're saying, Greg. Part of the reason why I'm such a fan of this is that the way that I see it being used, well, you kind of already said it, but it's the one way that I feel, if I could use a turn of phrase here that I know I've heard you use, a lot of the tools that are out there are more like dessert. They come after the main course. And that was largely how I used technology. It was the things surrounding, but the education core in the middle, I wanted complete control over. And so I use things on the periphery. What I think is so fascinating about your system is that it's integrated with and correct me if you don't like this word, but it is integrated with a traditional group method, a traditional piano method. And when I say traditional, I'm saying like it really draws upon the principles that we know create the best learning environment for children, at least from my view and from the view of a lot of smart people like Randall Faber and things of that nature, or people like that. So I don't know if I have a question at the end of this. I'm just saying, like, you know, kind of my observation is that what this is, that what you're doing is what I've just described. I'm curious, though, having heard me say all that, if you have anything you would add to that, or pushback, or a correction.
No, I like what you said, though, and about the honesty of how it took you years to perfect and figure out how to teach group lessons well, like your way. Because we both have taught group lessons. I've been a little more high tech, you've been more low tech, but we both figured out how to make it work, right? And back to what I said at the very beginning of our talk today, technology is not needed. It's not necessary, and you're living proof of that. But it took you years to figure it out. It took me a few years to figure out how to get a Roland piano, or how to get Aaron's software, Piano Marvel, to work with the piano, with my method book series. The thing that I believe that we are releasing to the world this year with the Piano Express at grouplessons.com is something that won't take years to figure out. It'll take weeks. Yeah. Because our training is so easy. Our software, you just open it up, it's plug and play. It's easy to figure out. The training is very complete and simple to follow. It's not hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of training. It's just training that's easy to see. And so we are going to be the option for teachers that want to get something started but don't have years to figure it out. And that's really what I'm most excited about this year is bringing teachers on and getting them through the training and seeing what happens on the other end.
I want to even add something on top of that.
Okay.
The thing that eventually made my group lesson system work so well was that, and this is a good thing, but it can be a little painful. And that is that I had to learn all of the ways that I was a bad teacher. And all of that stuff had to be cut so that only the best stuff remained. And now having trained nearly 400 teachers in the way that I do it, I've seen varying degrees of success. And there are people that have struggled with it somewhat, or it's caused them anxiety at first because they're coming face to face with shortcomings that they have. And frankly, our private community in, around that way that I do group, there are people who said, learning to teach this way made me see all the ways that, really what I just said there a minute ago, like learning how to teach group in this way has shown me all the ways that I was being inefficient as a teacher, or that sort of thing. So it really does require a dedication to even get there. But again, in observing, the couple dozen studios that are now using the Express system around, the U.S., what I think is fascinating me so much is just how quickly these teachers picked it up and just were using it seamlessly. Right. And I say that with no sense of exaggeration. It's fascinating. Greg, there's one other thing I did want to maybe ask you to elaborate a little bit more on.
Sure.
I would love to know, you said it earlier, but you said, we are not a software company. We are a curriculum company that has a software component with it. Is there anything else that you would kind of elaborate on that kind of distinguishes what you're doing? Because there are a lot of softwares out there that grade students on their performance, that sort of thing. What makes what you're doing so different than that? I didn't really prep for that, so I hope you have a great answer for it, because like I said, we're not editing this thing.
That's okay. All I can say is, in my observation of how teachers use softwares out there, we mentioned Aaron's Piano Marvel, but there's Piano Maestro, there's Simply Piano, there's some popular apps out there. Most piano teachers that I've seen use that software like those softwares, like the dessert at the end of the meal. It's like, okay, well, teachers, they feel like they have to balance it out. Like they don't want to be the teacher in town that's not any fun, that everyone wants to be the fun teacher. And so we have to find a fun software. And really what we are asking our licensees to do, and this might be frightening for some people. Some people might change the channel after I say this. We're not asking our licensees to put their toes in the water. We're asking our licensees to jump in, because if you can kind of go big with our software, it will transform the way you do group lessons. It will show you the path to multiply the people that you see without dividing the attention that you give to students, which seems like impossible math. But when you add a hybrid of human intelligence to artificial intelligence, then you can do things that were never possible before. The exact way that we do it, how we have our assessment room, our discovery room, we've covered a lot of that how-to in other videos. We covered that in the podcast. But so like the exact nuts and bolts of it, I'm not going to get into now. But when you put all these pieces together, paper and ink method books, software that supports it, tutorial videos, teacher training, lesson plans, all of it just easy to follow, all of it streamlined, studios transform.